Hello, Jennifer.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm good.
We'll just give it a couple more minutes while people join.
It's okay.
Let's just give it one more minute and then I'll get started. Okay, I think we'll get going here. Hi, everyone. My name is Jen Taillefer. I'm the Academic Programs Coordinator at the School of Architecture, Planning, and Landscape at the University of Calgary. Welcome to our information session. We appreciate you joining us. Please note we are recording this session for future use. Before we get started, we would like to acknowledge and pay tribute to the traditional territories of the people of Treaty 7, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piguni, and Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations. The City of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. By the signing of Treaty 7 in 1877, the university recognizes that we are all treaty people. So I'm going to share my screen and start with a presentation on all the frequently asked questions around the application process. It's going to be a little bit interactive. We're going to ask you guys some questions too. So as Jess noted in the chat, if you can follow along on the mentimeter.com screen, like in another tab or something like that. Okay. Okay, like I said, this will be interactive, so looking forward to hearing from you guys as well. I'm going to cover most of our programs, but all of our programs are open up for questions. So if there's something that you think is missing as we go, just let me know. So first question we're going to ask you guys is to, in the poll in the Mentimeter, can you let us know which program you're applying to?
Hi, Jen. It's Jess. We're not seeing your shared screen yet.
Okay. Does that work?
Yes, it sure does.
Okay, sorry about that.
For those of us joining in the audience, if you go to menti.com and use the code at the top of the website, you'll be able to log into this particular poll questions.
This is fun. I've never used this before. We'll just give it a couple minutes while it populates and then I'll get going. Okay, and then the one other question I would like to know is what point you guys are all at. So have you actually started your online application? Or have you not and you're here to get some more information before you do that? Okay. So the one thing we get asked about a lot, so I thought I would throw this in here even though it's not about the applications, is tuition. It's not always intuitive to find it on the website, and the Faculty of Graduate Studies in the university doesn't like us to have it all in a bunch of different areas, because then the messages might get changed, something might not be updated. I'm not sure if you can see all this on your screens, but really quickly, I'll just go through it. Total tuition for Master of Architecture 3-year program is about $27,000 for Canadians and $63,000 for international students. Planning is a 2-year program, about $17,000 for domestic students and $40,000 for international students. This is all in the whole total. MLA is also a 3-year program. You're looking at almost $24,000 for domestic students and $55,000 for international. And then the thesis-based students, they pay per year. It's a flat rate. So $34.64 for domestic students per year, and then just over $8,000 per year for international students. And you guys can email me or anytime for a breakdown of what this looks like. So the one thing that confuses some people is that this is a 2-step process. So there's an online application form, and then you're done the form, you submit the form, and then the second step is you will get access to your student center, and that's where you're going to upload your supporting documents like your portfolio, your transcripts, the other required documents for your application. And the thing is you want to get this online application form done as soon as possible, because your references will get their link and their instructions as soon as you submit it. So if you wait too long, it just gives them less time to get their reference done. And like references are always the slowest thing to come in for an application. So it doesn't mean you have to have your portfolio done. You can submit that application anytime, and you still have till your deadline to submit your documents. Speaking of deadlines, just so it's clear, for the 3 professional course-based master's programs, the deadline is January 15th, and that means 11:59 p.m. Calgary time, which is right now Mountain Daylight Savings Time. And then references, they have 1 extra week, so that's going to be January 22nd. For the Master of Environmental Design, the PhD, and the DDes, their deadline's February 1st, same thing, about 11:59 p.m., and then they also have an extra week for the references. So just in case you haven't started yet, the best way to find the actual link to start your online application form is you can go to our sapl.ucalgary.ca site and click on admissions, and then choose whichever program you're applying to. And then if you drop down the online application form, that's where the actual link is. If you're brand new to U of C, you'll have to create an EID. And once you have that, that's where you can go in and log in and start. So we wanted to throw in a couple more questions as we go here. So just let us know where you're from. Are you from Calgary? Are you from another province or another country? If you just put those into the poll, then we'll kind of see some areas where you guys are. All right, 3 Canadians. Cool. Okay. So for those of you applying to the Master of Architecture, we get asked this all the time. For some reason, the system has buried it as an option when you're choosing your program inside the application form. So you have to choose environmental design first. And then the next screen, you will actually see the Master of Architecture. So I'm sorry about that. We've been asking IT to fix it, and it hasn't been fixed. So that's where you find it, and then you just carry on from there. So if you're applying to the foundation year, there's a way to indicate this by a question asking you if you have a pre-professional undergrad degree. So most of you applying, unless you have an undergrad in architecture that is from an accredited North American program, you are going to likely be looking at the 3-year program starting with the foundation year. So then you would say the answer to the question would be no. And then you're going to see this foundation year waiver form sitting on your to-do list, but because we don't need that from you, you would want to email us to let us know to waive it. So just email admissions@sapl.ucalgary.ca with your UCID number and say, please waive that form, and that will come off of your to-do list. So there's those of you who are applying to the 2-year program, maybe you've done our architectural studies minor at the University of Calgary, or you have coming from a professionally accredited undergrad in architecture. You would answer yes to that question, and then you would download the foundation waiver form, and you would basically list the courses you have taken that you feel have covered all the content of our foundation year courses. So for this application and the deadline, we only need this form to be uploaded. We don't need your course outlines until February 15th. So you've got some time to pull them together, and then you would email them to admissions@sapl.ucalgary.ca. If it's going to be a big file, we prefer maybe you do it via Dropbox or another file sharing way, so that our inbox doesn't get full of huge files that way. And then if you've done the minor, you can also email us to waive the requirement, because we don't need the form because we know you've taken those exact courses. Now there's some kind of basic questions in the online application form. You might have come across them about funding, how did you hear about us, that kind of thing. Don't let these questions stress you out, just answer them. The funding one's a bit like, it's not gonna affect your application in terms of where we're coming from. So if you haven't applied for funding and you're not planning to, that's totally fine. If you have, just indicate what you can. But again, it's not a make or break thing. I think it's more really for the university to capture this kind of data, but it's totally fine either way how you answer them. We basically want people about the funding. We want to be able to ensure students know that they are expected to be able to fund their studies themselves, and hopefully they will be successful in obtaining scholarships or teaching assistantships, that kind of thing. But that there's no guarantee of funding, just so people are aware of that. So if you say you're not applying for funding and you don't need it, then that reassures us that you understand that. But it's fine either way how you answer those questions. Okay, I just thought we'd check in and see. I still have a ways to go, so I haven't covered everything yet. But if you think we're on the right track, just let us know through the poll, and we'll go from there. And don't worry, there will be opportunity for questions later too. So hopefully, if it's not covered in this, then we'll get to it. Okay, so the requirements to apply to, especially to our master's programs, you have to have a 4-year bachelor degree. If you're applying to our PhD program, we do require you have a master's degree. The GPA is a minimum of 3.0 or equivalent on a 4.0 scale. So that you're looking at 72% or a B average, depending on what school you're coming from. And also we have ways to translate from international schools. We need at least 20 courses or 60 units. So if you've done a bit of part-time studies in your last 2 years, so you don't have that many courses, we will go back another term until we hit that 20 course mark. And we won't split up that extra semester to pull out the highest grades. We take the whole semester. So that's how we do the GPA calculation. And we have to do it on your first bachelor degree. So if you've done 2 degrees or you've done a bachelor degree and then a diploma, your main GPA calculation will be on those last 2 years of your first bachelor. But if you do have education after that, and it's maybe the grades are better, that will definitely be considered and can help. If your GPA is a bit lower in your bachelor, but you have stronger grades more recently, that's going to help. It just won't be calculated into the actual GPA, but it's still a good thing. English proficiency, we get asked about this a lot as well from our international applicants. If your degree was instructed in English, and there's proof of that either on your transcript or a letter from the school, you do not have to submit a test score to us. Otherwise, the IELTS score we require is a 7.5. Occasionally we'll admit someone with a 7.0 if everything else in the application is super strong. TOEFL again is 105. Again, there's a little leeway there depending on the application. And we are still accepting Duolingo this year because it's harder for some places to get to testing agencies. So our minimum score on that one is 130, and that one is pretty firm. So, but again, we review every single application that comes in. So if the score doesn't meet the minimum, the GPA doesn't meet the minimum, anything like that, you're still reviewed, because there's always a case where someone is super strong in other areas, and then we kind of look into that area that maybe doesn't meet the requirements. It might mean an interview, it might mean an extra step where grad studies has to look at it and give their okay if we're recommending admission. But yeah, just keep in mind, we're always going to look at every application. Okay, so this is for supporting documents. There's some common ones across all of the programs, obviously the online application form, your portfolio, your CV or your resume, and 3 references. So for references, we prefer that 2 are academic, but if you've been out of school for quite a while, it's fine. You can have 1 academic, 2 professional, or in some cases, it's all 3 are going to be professional. We don't accept character references or coworkers. Like, it should be someone you reported to in some capacity, but it could be a volunteer position. It doesn't have to be employment. but ideally you're going to have at least 1 or 2 academic references that can speak to how you would perform academically at the graduate level. So for the Master of Architecture, I'm not going to read through these actually because I do have slides on them individually, so we'll just go there. This is new this year, this architectural image paragraph. So what we want you to do is find an image or supply your own photograph of a building or some sort of architecture that inspires you, and include it in the PDF that you're going to submit so that the reviewers have something to refer to when you're talking about it. And then a paragraph of maximum 500 words. Just, why did you choose this image? Why are you looking into architecture? How do you see this building or this piece of architecture relating to the discipline of architecture, like the field of architecture, how you, your career path and how that inspires you. So it's a little vague, it's broad. You kind of are going to drive what you're going to talk about. There's no right or wrong. It's just something that they want to gauge a bit of kind of personal insight into the applicants. So for the other 2 programs that are asking for a statement of interest, this is you telling us about yourself and something that might not show up on your resume. So kind of round out that picture of your background, life experiences, travel, work, volunteer, anything like that. If you're a musician or a high caliber athlete competing, any of those things kind of can make you stand out next to somebody else. So just tell them, anything about yourself that's interesting that way, but you do want to connect it to the program that you're applying to. So, how can you transfer those skills, or how does it help you, in how you view yourself going through the program and then into the career path that way. And with planning, I hear this a lot. Please make it clear you understand that this is a design-based program, because some planning programs are not. They're a lot more policy-based. We are a fully accredited planning program, so you get everything you need to become a certified planner. However, we do a lot of hands-on work with real problems in a studio setting. So just kind of talk about how you understand that, and maybe that's the reason why you chose this program to apply to. Okay, here's another question. We were just wondering what disciplines you guys are studying right now as you prepare for grad school. So it might be fine arts, it might be business, might be urban studies. So maybe just throw those into the poll so we can see where you guys are coming from. Cool. Yeah, we seem to always have a wide range of backgrounds, which I think makes the program interesting once you're in your classes, especially studio with all the different backgrounds. Okay, portfolio. We've had quite a few sessions on this already this year. And I'm not an architect or a designer. I'm not going to get into huge details with advice. But basically, you can show your creativity and your design skills in any way. So anything you make, create. You want some manual work, drawing, sketching, painting, anything like that, but you can include photography, you can include graphic design, woodworking, like anything at all. Sewing, like fashion design, anything at all can be included in this. It doesn't have to be about buildings or landscapes or cities, depending on what you're applying to. It really can just show, what your background is and your creativity. So there's a few kind of, they're kind of rough guidelines about how we want the portfolio to be submitted. It has to be a PDF file. The size is 8.5 by 11 is just a gauge. Like, the thing you want to keep in mind is you don't want the reviewers to have to scroll and scroll and scroll to see everything. So it can't be huge. So that's kind of the guideline we gave. Some people do it in a page layout. Some people do single page. That's fine. Either way is fine. It doesn't have to be super high resolution. It's not going to be printed. It's going to be looked at on a screen, but high res enough so that the images really, pop and show your work well. So maximum is 25 pages. If you go into 26 or 27, it's not going to, hurt your application. You might only have 20 pages. So, and we usually say you want to have at least 12 pieces, and a piece might have multiple images. So it might be the progression of it, or a sketch first and then a painting, or woodworking. It could be the various stages, or if you designed a house or a cabin or something like that. Anything like that is fine. Now, those of you applying to the minor, this doesn't apply to your portfolio. That portfolio, we only require 6 pieces, and you're going to include your paragraph in there about your statement of interest. And yours isn't going to be quite as long as the ones for the master's applications. And also, while I'm talking about the minor, I think you probably already know, but you don't apply with an online application form. So you go into your student center, change a program request, and apply to the minor that way. And then you also have to email your PDF portfolio to arst@sapl.ucalgary.ca, and both of those things have to be done by February 1st. There's a few programs that we require examples of writing, so planning, the MEDES, and PhD. So this can be one piece, or it can be excerpts from multiple pieces. If you do that, please have a table of contents at the beginning. It's just, they basically want to get to gauge your academic writing skills or professional writing skills. There is a lot of writing and planning, and that's why they've added this to the requirements for that program. And obviously, the thesis programs is going to be a lot of writing too. So of course, they want to see writing skills that way. If you have projects that are in a different language, please obviously have them translated to English before you upload them. For our thesis programs, supervisors are not required to be identified before you apply, but it's always good to reach out to potential supervisors that are in your research area. You may or may not hear back from them. That's okay, it doesn't mean anything, but some of them might engage in a conversation with you and even get to the point where they'll say, please apply, I'd like to work with you. So if they don't, that's okay. You will list the people you feel are a good match with you. And if you're vetted by the committee as eligible for admission, that's when we will send out your application to all of the people you listed, and maybe even a few more that we feel might be a good fit. And then those people will come back to us and say yes or no. And then we have to also vet them again, depending on how many we can admit that year. So it's not required. It's good to start looking, and definitely list the people that you think are a good match with you in your application form. So the research statement and proposal, basically, I'm not going to read all this. It is also on our website, but the MEDES one is a little less focused, I might say. It's more about your interests, and also you can change this a bit once you get into the program. It doesn't have to be, this isn't going to be held to you and say, okay, this is what you're doing your thesis on. The PhD proposal is a little more rigorous, but again, it doesn't have to be super focused. It can just be, you know, what your background is and where you're coming from and your interests and your questions. And then obviously you will hone that down as you start the program. And email me if you want to have a copy of this. I think actually we'll probably send out the slide deck to anyone who's looking for it after. Okay, another question. So we'd like you to kind of rank these 4 areas of what inspired you to apply to our programs here. So reputation, geographical location, maybe someone you know is in the program or teaches in the program or heard about it themselves or in the profession. Or maybe it's part of what we do in the program that other schools might not offer, or it's just a bit different with our block courses and our study abroad. Okay, transcripts, another thing we get a lot of questions on. We do require a transcript from every single post-secondary institution you've attended. For unofficial, for your online, well, not your online application form, for when you're submitting your supporting documents, you can either download something from your school, or if you have a scan of a hard copy, that is all you have to upload for by the January 15th deadline. If you've completed your degree and it's all done, then yes, send us your official transcripts. You can either have them mailed to us, or you can have them emailed to the Faculty of Graduate Studies. But if you're not done yet, there's no point in sending us a hard copy degree or transcript because you're not done, and we would ask for another one later after you graduated. So you can just upload your unofficial transcripts, and then if offered admission, it would be conditional upon you completing your degree, and at that time we would require the final transcript showing that your degree had been conferred. And if you're a UCalgary student, you don't need to have anything submitted or sent to us because we can just pull it from the system. So again, I'm not sure if this all shows well on the screen, but if you need more information about how to submit them, we can get that to you afterwards. And this is the mailing address. We'd actually get asked this a lot too. It is on our website. It's pretty straightforward. As long as you have our School of Architecture, Planning and Landscape at the top, it will come to us. Okay, so that's the bulk of my presentation. If you think there's anything missing that you want me to talk about, you can pop that into the poll here, or afterwards we can actually do real questions in the Zoom chat. So if there's anything missing at this point, you can put it in the poll here. If not, we'll kind of go back to the Zoom side of things and see if there's any questions. Okay, so the length of the statement is 2 pages maximum, but there's no word maximum. So make sure it's legible, clear, double like spaced or not, doesn't matter as long as it's easily read, but 2-page max. Okay, scholarships, that's a good one. All applicants are automatically considered for entrance scholarships. So all successful applicants, sorry. So what happens is they rank everybody, they know how much they have to offer, and then they go in and the committee helps decide which ones should be offered. It's usually between 8 and 10 scholarships per program, and they range from about $2,000 to $10,000. These are one-time entrance scholarships. So after that, once you're in the program, there's other opportunities to apply to different scholarships, and there's also teaching assistantship positions and some research assistant positions that you can apply for. Okay, I'll try to gauge from this what else I can cover. Acceptance into the Master of Architecture. The ratio is usually about 1 in 3, 1 in 4 applicants get an offer. For the foundation year stream, we're looking for anywhere between 35 and 45 people. And for the 2-year stream, we're looking for anywhere between 25 and 30 people. It depends on each year, the number of people carrying over from the foundation year or how many minors we have coming into the first year courses. So it's a bit of a math thing we do every year. And also we put out offers and we hope we get enough. So sometimes we offer and we get everyone accepts. Then in that case, we wouldn't even go to the wait list. Other times, we get declines and then we do go to the wait list. So for the 3 master's course-based programs, there's always a wait list that we generate as well. Let's see here. Some of these questions you might have to ask me specifically in the chat afterwards. Applying from high school. So if you are looking at UCalgary for your application, we don't have a Bachelor of Architecture or like a full bachelor degree or a major. So what we have is the minor in architectural studies. So you apply to any program on campus that you choose that you like, you'll do well in, then you'll get good grades. And then in your second year, you would apply to the minor. And if you get into the minor, you complete that still within your 4 years of your bachelor degree. Unless you do engineering, I don't think it all fits into 4 years. But everything else, it should fit. And then you've saved a year because then you only have to do the 2-year master's afterwards. But honestly, there's no preferred degree. We see all types, like urban studies is the most common one we see it from UCalgary, but we see a lot of fine arts, quite a few business students, and then even sciences. We have zoology students come through, languages. So it's really about what you like and what you're good at. And then the other option is to not come to UCalgary. We won't want you to do that, but you could maybe go to Mount Royal and do an interior design degree, or U of A has a Bachelor of Design degree to get more background in that area if that interests you. But essentially any discipline is eligible and is fine. Let's see, CV, need a cover letter? No, just straight up CV, 2 pages, no cover letter required. For landscape architecture, our acceptance rate is usually about 1 in 2. It's a smaller program and smaller application numbers. So usually about 1 in 2 people will get an offer into that program. Our cohort right now is 15 students for the landscape architecture program. Resume or CV, either one's fine. Probably resume is better unless you have some really cool like publications that you've done that you think would impress the committee. You might want to go that route. But usually resume is the typical kind of document we receive. Okay, I'm going to wait on the Athabasca transcript question and upgrading GPA. I think I need a specific question for that. An incomplete bachelor's. I'm not sure if I touched on that, if that means you're not done yet, but you will be by the time you would start, which is totally fine. Application date. So everything's open now. You can apply now. And the deadlines, I think I did at the beginning, maybe you missed that, is January 15th for the professional program. So architecture, landscape architecture planning, and the thesis programs is February 1st. Our minor application deadline is February 1st. We do not look at high school transcripts for any of our programs, not even the minor. So because in the minor, you've already done a year at the U of C. So we don't look at any high school transcripts for any of our programs. Okay, I think the rest I will ask you to submit if I didn't catch it here in the Zoom chats. Yeah, so I think that's it for now for my presentation.
Jen, can I help moderate Q&A? You
Okay.
can, yeah, we'll stop sharing screen and then I'll start reading some of the questions that we've had come into the chat. And if there needs to be more conversation, that can happen with you guys unmuting yourself or on the video as we go along. So thank you guys so far. We have, Marjan's question was, how many vacancies do you have for March? I think you kind of touched on that.
Yeah, foundation year is 35 to 45, and the 2-year program is around 25, 30.
Dylan asks, can we have more than 3 references?
You can. We don't advertise this widely because it's extra work, but you can. If you think you have 4 super strong ones, the 4th one can be emailed to us directly to the admissions@SAPL email address from the referee, and then we will upload it to your application manually, but it can't come through you. So it has to come directly from them to us.
Places available for MLA.
So 15 is the target number each year. We typically don't see anyone admitted to the 2-year program. You actually have to have basically a Bachelor of Landscape Architecture to do that. So it's almost everyone's coming into the foundation year. Occasionally we have 1 or 2 people that come into the 2-year program, but it's the full 15 cohort. They are looking to grow. I don't know if that'll be this coming year. So maybe they'd look at 20 as they kind of plan that out. So it's possible they'll admit a few more this year. Just depends on the applicant pool and how things look, even with the COVID side of things.
Great. Can you expand on what is required from the references?
Yes, so there's a few questions that they're asked to basically rank you in areas such as, I'm trying to think if I know them off by heart, like work ethic, research skills is one of them. And I know it doesn't apply necessarily to design, but it does apply to the thesis programs. Like how they would rank of the people they've taught before. So sometimes professional references have a bit of an issue with how to answer those questions. But then the main part of it is there is a place for a narrative. So for text where they're gonna basically write a letter. So that's where they can kind of, say how they know you and how they've worked with you and why they feel that you'd be a great fit. And this is, how they love you so much that you should get a position in the program.
What orientation is preferred for the portfolio?
I don't really think there's a preference. Like I said before, you just don't want anyone to have to scroll a lot because they're probably doing this on their laptops. I don't know if portrait or landscape, they're probably totally fine either way. If you're doing the layout, obviously landscape would make more sense. But honestly, there's no preference and I don't think you're gonna hurt anything either way.
Is there a way to check the status of reference letter submissions?
Yes, so once you've submitted your online application form, that means they've received their email. You're gonna have a to-do list in your student center that you can watch all the time. And you'll see everything sitting there until you start to upload your documents or until the references come through. And you also get copied on an email. So once they've submitted their reference, they get a thank you email and you're copied on that. So there's 2 ways. You can see it in your student center and you'll get an email.
For the portfolio, are spreads counted as 2 pages or 1 page?
That's a tricky question. I think 2. But if you are doing spreads and it just means you have more work that you want to show. If it turned out you were going to have 32 pages because they're spreads, which means it's only 16 that they're scrolling through, that's okay. So just use your best judgment. Like I said, eventually if it's way too long, they're just going to stop looking and kind of say, okay, I've seen enough. It's human nature. They're seeing so many of these portfolios. So, but there's no like right or wrong. It's just, we've tried to give a rough guideline, count them as 2, and then kind of go from there as to how much work you have and edit wisely. I always hear them say that. Don't throw things in because you think you need to add a few more pieces if it's not your best, strongest work. And maybe have someone else look at it, even if they're not an architect or a planner or a landscape architect, just to get their opinion on how does this visually look to you. Apparently it really helps because you've done all this work and you've looked at it so many times, you kind of, need a new perspective. And I think that's very good advice.
This might require a bit more context, but what courses do I take from high school which are required?
So in terms of us, there aren't any required high school courses. It's going to depend on the bachelor program that you're applying to. So even for the minor, we don't have any required high school courses. So if you're looking at applying to a BA program, it's very minimal requirements of what you have to have. If you're looking at a BSc in one of the sciences, there's going to be more requirements. There's a few architecture schools in Canada that do want to see high school physics and or calculus. So if down the road you're thinking you might apply beyond the University of Calgary, maybe check into that and maybe take those so you've got them to cover those bases. But there's only 1 or 2 schools, I think, that look for that. I think U of T does, Toronto, but I'm not even sure who else does. But for us, we don't look at all.
For the photograph submission in the MARC application, if we use an image that is not of ours, is there a particular way to cite the photo?
Nope, there's no rules, but please do reference it. So literally you can, just cite the website that you found it on. And obviously if there's credits there for who took the picture or something like that, that's what you would use. But there's no rules or regulations around that.
My university allows for grades to be taken out of GPA calculations due to COVID. How will this play into GPA calculations for the MARC?
So if you have a grade, we're going to use it. If you have a pass-fail grade, we're not going to use it. So what that means is we may have to go back farther to get our 20 courses with grades that we can use in the calculation. So, but we're not going to, if you had a B minus and unfortunately, it's just, there's too much of that to happen for us to be able to do all that. It's a lot of work. So basically, if you get a pass-fail grade, that's cool. It's not going to count towards your GPA, but all your grades that you do have will count.
How long does SAPL take to inform applicants of admission decisions?
Our goal is we do the professional programs first. Our goal is to do that by early March. It depends on the year. Sometimes there's a lot more applications and things going on and it takes us a little bit longer, but that's the goal. And then the thesis programs, we hope to get those out by early April, if not sooner. And it's always done by email. So there's nothing coming in the mail. It's done by email.
Can I apply for 2 programs?
Yes, you would have to submit 2 separate applications. Your references would have to do 2 references, but they could copy and paste between the 2. The one thing that can be shared across both would be your transcripts.
I go to UCalgary, but I took one online course at Athabasca. Should I submit my transcript for that course?
Normally, we do ask you to do that. If you get a numeric grade at the U of C for that course in your U of C transcript, then it's not necessary. But if you're offered admission, they will ask us to make sure you have submitted that. But it's not a panic, and it doesn't have to be part of your application by January 15th if it's showing in your University of Calgary transcript.
Do we need references for the ARST arts minor?
No, just the portfolio and the little statement of interest in the portfolio. So it's all one PDF, and then the change of program application that you do in your student center. That's it.
Can I apply from Nigeria?
Yes, we welcome applications from everywhere.
Is the pool of accepted students into the foundation year split between the programs?
I'm not sure what that means.
That was me asking that.
Astrid. Okay.
Astrid. You were mentioning that the foundation year accepts, I think it was 25 to 30 students.
35 to 45, yeah.
Oh, okay, and then you had mentioned that for the MLA, I think is about 15, around that.
Yeah.
So is that pool of foundation, those amount of people accepting the foundation, is that for, because the Masters of Planning also requires the foundation year, I believe?
No, so these 2 foundation years are different.
So, okay. I thought they were all combined. I'm like, how do you match them?
No, one is architecture, one's landscape architecture.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Is there no need of statement of interest for the MARC?
No, there is not. They've replaced it with this paragraph, architectural image paragraph. So no need, no.
When we finish the foundation year, do we need to apply again for M1?
No. As long as you're successfully academic good standing, you just keep on going. You don't have to apply again.
How is admissions handling the credit, no credit courses from winter 2020 semester in Alberta? I think you've covered that. Is there any?
Yeah, I mean, basically, if there's no grade, we don't count it. It doesn't hurt it or help it. And then we just go back further to get 20 courses to make the calculation on.
Is there allowance for mature students, 10+ years professional experience in design industry, past incomplete bachelor's degree, 1 year left?
Probably. So what happens is if you have 3 out of 4 years for a bachelor, degree and a lot of work experience, I would recommend applying, because basically what it means is we would have to make a case to the Faculty of Graduate Studies that we feel you are a potentially good student, we want you in the program. So it's just one extra level of approval. So then they decide if they will permit that in that case. So there's always kind of a case-by-case basis for these things where if you don't meet those types of requirements. So, and especially if your background is in design, I would say definitely apply. I can't guarantee anything and it is this extra level of approvals if our committee wants to admit you. But yeah, I would say go for it.
Going back to the high school courses, and I think maybe this is a good question for even in the bachelor's program, but what percent grades is the guys looking for people to have in their studies?
So like the minimum GPA we look for is 3.0 in the last 2 years. Competitive average is usually around 3.4 or 3.5 for those we offer admission to, and it's actually similar across all of our programs. The minor is, the minimum is 3.2, and it's usually more competitively around 3.5 again. So I don't know, I think that's the question is what we're looking for. I mean, obviously we get a whole scale of people. Someone might have a 3.1 and an amazing portfolio, and then vice versa. There might be a 4.0 and portfolio is okay and they see potential. It's not like a superstar portfolio, but they want to bring that person in, they're academically strong. So it is a mix, and it's a balance, and it's the whole package that gets considered. I hope I've answered the question.
Yeah. I've never applied for student loans before, and I will be, but do I need to apply to be accepted to the program first? How would I answer the question about funding?
I'm not totally well versed in the student loans side of things. I don't know if you can apply before you're accepted or not. Just anecdotally, all the students that we admit, they seem to start asking us questions about that after they're offered admission. You might want to check with your province, maybe your Alberta or elsewhere, but I would check with what the rules are. I'm sure they could tell you how it works, the timing of everything. And you can say, yes, I'm seeking funding. And if you can't really nail what the options are with matching with what you plan to do, you can, I think there's I was talking to someone who I think is here today, who said there's an option for other, so you could choose that. Or you can say, no, it's not going to hurt anything and it doesn't affect your funding. It doesn't affect your application. Like I said before, it's literally some boxes they want applicants to check. So either way is fine.
For the M-Plan program, how many applicants do you receive and how many offers are made?
So typically we're receiving 80 to 100 to, well, I guess we've had 120 applications some years. So, and we want 30 for the cohort. So we usually make about 45 to 50 offers each year. And again, there's talk of a bit of growth with that as well. So that might be a little bit higher for 2021. I'm not sure yet, but yeah, usually it's like I said, with architecture similar, it's 1 in 3, 1 in 4 people. Actually, no, planning's the ratio's a little smaller. 1 in 2, 1 in 3 people are getting an offer.
Is visual creativity encouraged for the MLA statement of interest?
Do you mean like prettying up the statement with images, or do you mean talking about it? I think.
Hi, Jennifer, that's me again.
Yeah.
Sorry, why are my questions all the big ones? I mean, essentially making a creative template, I guess. So, you know, not just the blank sort of like CV style piece of paper, because there's an example and it's someone's statement of interest, I think for the minor, and they've done this really fancy self-portrait. Obviously not going to do that, right. but I mean, you know, having something that is not just a Word document submitted. I did ask the portfolio reviewer that, or I mentioned it and they seemed interested, but it was also 20 minutes and I don't remember if they said anything.
Yeah, I kind of hear both. I hear you like, well, maybe it's more for the portfolio. You don't want to have big fancy headers and footers and take away from your images. Mm-hmm. But in terms of a written piece, you know, maybe that would, you know, kind of show a little creativity. And you're right, because they're seeing all these plain, you know, just Word documents.
Okay, so not discouraged, but obviously not to detract from the statement itself.
Yes, don't go crazy. Make sure it's legible. That's the main thing.
Right, no handwritten.
Yeah, don't do that.
Right, thank you.
I'll just before we move on, I'll just also say, like, any decisions you make, you want to make sure it doesn't take away from what you're actually trying to include. So creative decisions are great if they're adding value, but not just for the
For the
sake
sake of
of
it.
creative, right? Like make
Exactly.
sure it's like cooking shows. Edit your plate. Like make sure what you're adding to the ingredients is actually making a difference. I watch a lot of cooking shows. Sorry for
Right.
ad lib.
Thanks, Jess.
Oh, thank you.
The cover and CV pages, is it included in the 25 pages?
So the portfolio, you're not going to put your CV in your portfolio. That'll be a separate document. But for your portfolio, the cover page, again, it's kind of a rough guideline. So it can count, but it doesn't have to. Like if it's going to make it 26 pages, that's totally fine. So like I said, they're not super strict around that. It's more of a don't submit a 100-page portfolio or a 3-page portfolio.
Who can I talk to you about how the program is being taught during COVID? I have some questions about how it will be different to previous years. So Katie, I don't know if you want to, I think Jen might just give you a quick overview, and then if there's something specific you have questions about, we can either maybe ask one or two or take some offline, but definitely it's a great question. I think a lot of people would like to just get a little bit of an overview on.
For sure, yeah, it's obviously been challenging for everyone, but I think we've done a fairly good job of, I mean, everything's online, so no matter what course you're taking, you're doing it online, but we have provided for people who are in Calgary, and Jess has done a huge amount of work for this, is like physically distanced and safe workstations. So those students who want to come to campus can come and be with their cohort, if there are any in their cohort who can also come to campus, who want to come to campus. So there's that tiny bit of potential collaboration for people who are around, but they're still sitting at their desks, even at their workstations, and going online to their courses. I'm hearing good things about studio classes. It was, obviously a bit of a concern that a hands-on course might be, how do you get the same kind of experience when it's online? But I think some of our profs are actually saying the Zoom thing, the one-on-one and the sharing screens and all of that, they're making models sometimes on their own and taking pictures of them. Like, I think it's working. So some people might have concerns about that, but I think, hopefully by 2021, this isn't going to be an issue. Who knows? We can't predict that. But I think if it's part of your program is going to be like that, I don't think it's a bad thing. And the other thing I've heard a lot of the profs say is, like, that's the nature of practice now. Like, architects, landscape architects, planners are meeting people globally, and they're doing this. So they're on Zoom, they're showing their work, they're getting feedback and income or insight. And so it's not a bad kind of experience to go through. I know Zoom fatigue is a thing, and I'm sure all of you are going through that if you're in school right now. But I think they're covering it pretty well. And I think, like, again, hopefully if next year's a hybrid or fully back in person or online for a bit longer, either way, you're not going to lose anything out of your education. I think they're doing a great job.
I would second that. In our team meetings, there's been student surveys that have gone out, and the report back is that they're still enjoying their educational experience. Overall, the programs are running really smoothly. I think most of the challenges come from the COVID challenges, like being home in a space that's not your usual workspace, or being alone, things like that. Some of that, not being able to interact in person with your peers, but we have some modes to target some of that, but the educational component itself is still being delivered really well, according to the student feedback we've received from the SA and from different professors who've done polls. So Katie, if you have more questions, either keep adding them to the chat or we can talk with Jen offline about that, but hopefully that helps. Who coordinates the application, and how many year one courses do you need to take to apply for the ARS undergrad?
Okay, so for the architectural studies minor, basically you just start your main program. So you're going to do a year and essentially a half before your application is submitted. We do have intro courses that are a good idea to take if they fit in with your plan with whatever major you're doing. So we have ARS 201, which is a very kind of broad survey course on architecture. We also have ARS 431, which is an intro undergraduate studio course, which is excellent experience to prepare you for to help you prepare your portfolio for applying to the minor. So those are two courses you want to try to get into if you're coming out of high school. So say you've chosen urban studies, that's just my example, as your major, your first year, you're going to start to take those courses. and then try to squeeze in these architecture kind of prep courses as well.
Yeah, sorry, that was my question. So I don't know what these courses are, but I want to make sure these are the courses before I apply to the undergrad. For like the first year where I can take any courses, quote unquote, I don't know which courses I need to take.
Right, so when you apply to the University of Calgary as a high school student, you're choosing your main program, and that's not architecture. So you're going to choose, is it going to be urban studies, or is it going to be zoology, or is it going to be business? So once you're accepted, you know that's your program. Your program will kind of lay out, this is what year 1 looks like, year 2, year 3, year 4. And you know you want to build the minor into and fit it in. So year 1, say it's urban studies, and they have, take these 6 courses, 4 of them can be option courses. You'll want to take those 2 architecture courses that I just mentioned. And you can email me directly. I can let you know what those are with the course codes and everything. So once you know the program you're admitted to, that's when you would want to see what courses of that program you have to take, and then also build in these kind of prep architecture courses too.
Where can I find your email?
I'll put it in the chat.
Oh, thanks, Jess.
Okay, thank you.
I'll put it in the chat in a few minutes. So for, I think some of these questions we'll get back to you offline, but for the references to explain to professors, is it filled in online, or is there a letter they need to upload?
So they'll receive an email. So you're going to put their email addresses into your online application form. And then when you submit the form, they automatically get an email with a link and instructions, and it's an online reference that they do. But there is a section where it is text, so that can kind of be the letter side of things. Before that, there's just a few boxes and questions that they answer.
Is the image paragraph meant to be included in the portfolio, or is it a separate piece?
A separate piece.
Is the planning department full CIP and APPBI accreditation?
Yes, yes, we are fully accredited. I can't remember when we renew, but it's 2022 or 2023, I think. But yeah, so completing our program gets you on the path to internship and then getting your licensure.
For the minor, what should be included in the statement of interest?
Probably if your goal is to get into the Master of Architecture and you want to become an architect, speak about that. If you are trying to just gain some design skills and you want to have that for maybe other reasons or other areas of design, just talk about your interests and why architecture. Talk about the major, your program that you're in, and that how you want to add this to it. It's really, they just want to hear kind of why you're interested.
In my portfolio, I have video evidence of a piece I created that I'd like to include. Would this be a possibility?
So I would include it. I can't guarantee the reviewers will click on it and watch it. Most likely they will. Again, it's a time issue and how many applications they're going through. But make sure you also have enough of everything, like, visually in the portfolio itself to kind of give them the feeling and the knowledge of your work. But yes, I would say include it, because I think sometimes they do that. People have music or videos and links or websites. Sometimes the reviewers will go look, sometimes they won't. So, but I would include it if you have it.
Scott has a question that's 2-part. He didn't include what it was. So Scott, did you want to turn on your microphone and ask it in person? We have just a minute or 2 to do so.
Yeah, sure. No, I can be quick. So I'm currently in VCAT and will come out a mature architect. So will I need to take the minors in architecture first?
Nope. So once you're finished, you're doing a bachelor's degree?
No, it's just an architectural design and technology course.
Okay. And do you have any other post-secondary?
No, other than just like which would be my 2-part is a GED. So I'm just wondering and making sure if I would need any upgrades to any classes before even applying to the minors.
So yeah, you would want to transfer your VCAD work diploma into a bachelor degree and finish that. You'd probably get some credit, like a year or 2 maybe. You don't have to do the minor, but if you're in Calgary and you apply to UCalgary to finish this bachelor, I would, apply to it and try to get that in there too. But if not, once you're done the bachelor, then you apply to the 3-year master's program. But yes, you will be required.
And it would still be a 3-year? It wouldn't be a 2-year?
It wouldn't be a 2-year unless you did the minor first.
Oh,
it's just not required.
So I don't need to do the minor. I can just go for a bachelor's after this.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. All right, thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Scott. What are the professional opportunities offered to MArch students? Are there any co-op opportunities, study tours?
So there, we don't have a co-op program. What we do have is what they're calling work integrated learning studios in the final year. So basically we have partnered with several firms, like architecture firms in Calgary, and your studio will be partially working on a project that they're working on in the firm. So you will actually go to the office, you will work with the team there, you won't get paid, but it does give you a lot of kind of in-person and real life practice experience as part of your studio. So that's a great networking opportunity. It's a great experience to have, but there's no, like I said, co-op position or kind of term where you're solidly working and then you come back. It's not like that. We do have a study abroad term now, as long as travel is permitted. So you can go to Barcelona or Tokyo or Zurich in your summer term, either after foundation, after M1, or you can even do it after your final year and just extend your graduation to November instead of June. So there is one summer term involved in the 3-year master or 2-year Master of Architecture program. And what was I going to say about working? No, I can't remember. I lost my train of thought. I hope that answers the question. I mean, there's experience, there's networking opportunities. You're not allowed to start counting any hours for your AAA, like the Alberta Association of Architects, logging, you know, towards becoming licensed. So you have to do these internship hours after, like, practice hours before you can write, not before you can write the exams, but before you can get your license. And then they used to let you count summer work and things like that beforehand, but now they don't. So you're not counting hours till you graduate anyway. So co-op wouldn't help you in that capacity. So, but yeah, no, we don't have a co-op program.
Should the portfolio have a table of contents?
A lot of people do include it. I don't think there's a should or shouldn't, but I think if you're if you have different like areas of types of work, like different media or something like that, you might want to break it up and have a table of contents. But some people don't, and it just literally, they just flow from beginning to end and there's no breakdowns. You do want to have a bit of text for your work. So just describing what it is, the media, the topic, maybe one sentence about inspiration if that's applicable. But you don't want a lot of text because, again, them going through so many portfolios, you want to keep it succinct. But yeah, I think probably I would say if it was me, I would use a table of contents to kind of break things out, but it's not required.
Is it beneficial to take ARST 201 during undergrad and ARST 431?
Yes, yeah, I definitely would recommend that. There's even ARST 441, which is the continuation of 431. So it's another studio course. If you're planning to do the minor or not planning to do the minor, taking those 3 courses would be very helpful. And even for landscape architecture and planning as well, because it gives you that design background, because you're getting into design programs down the road. So,
can you comment on career prospects and trends for future MArch grads?
I don't know how well I can comment on that. Most of the information I have is pretty anecdotal. And it depends on the economy at the time and where you are, of course. But I do know that a lot of our grads are getting jobs, well, architecture especially, within maybe a year after. I'm not saying all of them are, but quite a few are. There's so many networking opportunities. Some of our profs have their own firms. A couple of them do. So but then, you know, sometimes it's just a bad year, or maybe the economies and people aren't hiring, but and it's also, I think, a very transferable skill set. So if you don't get into a firm right away, maybe there's other ways you can use your skills in different areas. But I mean, architecture firms want to hire interns. That's the, you know, that's the people doing all the work for them at that level. So I think, you know, it's pretty good. I can't give you numbers or statistics. I've even asked the AAA for statistics before and they don't really provide them. So, but I want to give it a positive kind of feel. I think, you know, it's not bad considering everything that's going on, and every year is going to be different too. So honestly, it's hard to say for sure, but I hear good things from the grads that I do hear from. So
yeah, and even looking on LinkedIn, like if you're connected to LinkedIn alumni, you'll see a lot of them moving into roles. I see that all the time. I'm not in the recruiting portfolio, so if my outside of the recruitment area lens adds anything to that. Also, I know lots of graduates because I do the events for the school. So I see a lot of the alumni come back. And we've had alumni do really interesting things that aren't exactly in their field of study. Like they haven't built buildings, but they've done something in food sustainability, or they've gone on to start their own business, things like that. So there is a lot of really interesting stuff. I would definitely try to connect with alumni or students and see what kinds of things that they can say firsthand on that. But we are seeing a lot of that just from our own lenses as employees of the school. So everything is what you make it too. So
Yes.
these are what you make it. Unless your undergrad is in architecture, will you need to complete a 3-year MArch?
Yes. Yes, you will. Like I said, I think you have to have, not I think, you have to have an undergrad and an accredited architecture program in North America if you want to only do the 2 years. And that includes our arts minor.
And this is the last question that's come in, and it's 6:01, so we're pretty good on timing here. I'm already a practicing architect in India. Does it mean I can't intern in Canada until I get my MArch degree there?
That's more of a question that you want to direct to the CACB, so the Canadian Architectural Certification Board. Unfortunately it costs money, but they will evaluate your credentials and say either you need to take a Master of Architecture program in Canada, or they're going to say you need 1 or 2 courses, and then we'll certify your degree, and then you can go on and intern. So typically we see the architects from India with the BArch, they do need to do our Master of Architecture, but every case is different. So if you want to spend the money in case you don't need to go and do a 2 or 3 year architecture program again, for them to let you know, then you might want to look into that first.
Terrific. So that's all the questions we had in. If anybody has additional questions, I'm just popping Jen's email into the chat box right now so that people can email her, or you have my email because you've received several emails reminders from me. You can always email it to me and I'll forward it on. How did you guys find the session? Do you feel like you got the questions that you had on your mind answered? Did you feel like this was valuable information? We're going to send out the slides with the information after, because it's really targeted responses to your questions that we think are good for quick glance. But yeah, let us know what you think. Is there?
Thanks, Angat.
Thank you. So Angat is an alumni from the MLA program. So he's obviously wanting to come back to school with us. That does not mean
Loves us.
he can't find a job, because we know he's so talented. It just means that we're awesome program. So
yeah, just like Jen said, I am working with one of the profs and one of their firms, but I'm also doing a lot of volunteering work. There are a few organizations like Detox, where I've spent a lot of my time this last year, and also giving back to my community. So I'm also community association, and building my, acting as a project manager for a landscape project. So like Jen said, you have the opportunity to explore your skills that you've built from the program and apply it in other practices.
Thanks, Angat.
Angat, we're very proud of our alumni. We love to see you guys come back.
Yes.
Angat, do you want me to forward you specific questions, or are you comfortable sharing your email publicly?
Share my email. I'll just write it down.
Terrific. Thank you. We know you guys have spent a lot of time with us this fall on different recruitment activities. So we hope that these have all provided some value to you, and you've had the opportunity to grow from the different things that you've joined in on. I know a lot of you are repeats into the different sessions that we've had. So hopefully they've built on one another. If you do have feedback or thoughts on how your recruitment experience has been as far as the educational offerings this fall, you're always welcome to email Jen or I and let us know, because we're trying to make sure we give you guys as much as we can in the fall as you prepare for your application as possible. And if other than that, I think Jen will say some closing remarks, but thank you guys for being here.
Thank you
Yeah,
for
I'm really
the
glad you guys are
information.
here. And feel free to email me. I don't mind. If I'm a bit slow, I don't mind reminder emails as well. So I do get a lot, but I'm happy to help. So keep in touch.
All right. Well, thank you, Jen, and thank you to everyone. We'll say goodnight to you now. Keep in touch with us. We look forward to seeing your applications and hopefully admitting you into the school.
Thank you, Jen and Jess.
Yes.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you. I'm now clear as to my next step.
Great.
Yeah, good luck in your undergrad. We'll look forward to seeing you in a few years.
Thank you. You too.